Hello, twisted humans.
Do you find yourself wanting to know more about the latest murder, conspiracy, cult, or haunting?
Then this is the podcast for you. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Sierra, and this is Twisted and Uncorked.
Guys, I really want a baby raccoon. Sierra's shitting on my dreams.
There's a reason why we're not supposed to own raccoons.
Wild animals. No, I agree. The only time I'm okay with it is if people have, for whatever reason, in some sort of fluke incident, have rescued these animals for whatever reason or another.
I agree with that one also.
Ducks, because they will imprint on you as babies, and you can't leave them at that point. They just think you're their mama. So.
Well, farm animals are completely different. A duck is a farm animal, in my opinion. But, yeah, no, wild animals, I agree if they're, hurt or whatever, humans have to take care of them. But even still, I don't think a pet is the right choice for it. I think
there is one
zoos and state parks and things like that. That's fine.
People that are trained to take care of them.
And can have them in an outdoor facility. I don't think they should be inside a house ever. I think it's dangerous.
I want to work at a state park and just play with all of the animals. Yeah. Oh, I might have. Okay, I follow this page called Poppy the Prairie Dog, and she was rescued as a baby in a hurricane, I guess. Like, they just found her. Mm-hmm. Like, all sad and disheveled. And she's the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Aww.
She just, like, roams around their house. She thinks she's people. It's cute.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my rant about exotic animals. And this is episode 56, part 2.
Yeah.
We're so ahead of the game, I actually questioned whether or not I edited the right episode this weekend for a split second. I was like...
We're only a week ahead right now.
Yeah, I know. But it's still good.
It is good.
Still
it
good.
Is good. Yeah.
And we are, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, finishing off our coverage of Robert Hansen. And even though I did cover some people in part 1, I always feel really bad for Sierra when it comes to our serial killers, because she's always covering, like, the darkest parts of the story.
Honestly, I love it
with the exception of Ted Bundy, which we kind of really split, right. But,
I like this way because, so in the first episode, you have to talk about the brain stuff, right? Like, his life growing up, his or her, and, like, what probably made him this way. And you literally, went to school for psychology. So it's like you get to do that. And then my stuff, I don't like having to talk about people getting hurt, but I love ending it with, and then they went to jail, Like,
good cherry on top. Yeah. That is true.
I feel like I get a happy ending. You get and we all know that this is going to go south,
That is true.
Anyway, do you have a fun fact?
I do. It's a real wholesome fun fact before we bring the energy down here a little bit.
Yeah.
Prairie dogs, speaking of prairie dogs, kiss. Prairie dogs are quirky little creatures, and as we know, they're like they look like miniature beavers, kind of. They dig massive underground homes and series of tunnels, and they kiss. When they seem to be sweetly sharing a smooch, they're actually touching their front teeth together to identify each other.
Ew. I don't like that.
I know, I didn't think you would. BBC explained that scientists believe that prairie dogs kiss and cuddle more when they're being watched by visitors in the wild or at zoos because they enjoy the attention.
That is cute.
That is cute.
The first time my kids saw a prairie dog, they yelled, "There's a beaver!" So I get that.
They look like miniature beavers, but without the tails.
Yeah.
They're real cute.
Also, I do not like teeth touching. That's disgusting. Have you ever had that happen to you when you were kissing someone?
Yeah,
it's gross.
Like in high school, it's alarming.
Yeah, it hurts.
It's like, oh, get out of here.
The first time I kissed a girl, our teeth clanked, and I was like, no. No. No.
I don't like that for you. No, it's not good.
Gross.
What's your fun fact?
My fun fact is that the original purpose of sunglasses was to mask the emotions of judges when questioning witnesses. They were
Really?
invented in 12th century China.
Not even for the purpose of keeping out the sun. Just to keep
I mean, I don't
poker
know if they were
face.
called sunglasses, but yeah, the first darkened glasses were
They were
for
probably
judges.
called like shades or something.
Yeah.
Which book is that
Well,
from?
My Strange But True Trivia.
Love it. Love it. Thank
Yeah.
God for sunglasses, because driving would be a struggle otherwise.
Oh, I know. I didn't have sunglasses all weekend because I couldn't find them. I finally found them today, and I was like, oh, I put them on, and they just, fit on so perfect, and, they felt good on my ears. I was like, I'm never taking these off.
I was like, ah.
Yes, like that. Another thing that's go ahead and make that noise again.
Ah.
There you go. Is this drink.
Yes, it is very good.
So we used our Oliver, is that right?
Yeah.
Oliver rosé from last week. We mixed it with some grapefruit juice, some vodka, some strawberries, some grapefruit, some limes, and peppermint, and then of course a little splash of some bubbly water. But I am telling you, the peppermint really makes the difference. Do not leave out the peppermint leaves.
You don't even need to muddle it if you're making it ahead of time.
No, just stir it in. It's so good. Yeah, it's not too tart. You'd think that the grapefruit would be too tart or too sour, but oh my God, it's perfect. And I believe, so we already drank some of ours. Mine's not pretty this week because we already drank some of ours before when we were recording something else. But we also rated it, and I think this would be an 8.5. This is good.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to give it a 9. I love it. I love grapefruit, though. I know that's a controversial opinion to most people, but I actually really like grapefruit, and the combination of the mint and so good.
Mm-hmm. I like grapefruit, too. This drink, because of the grapefruit and the sweetness of the wine and the peppermint, it goes together so well. I'm so glad I decided to try this one. All right, let's get this terrible story over with. But first, we are going to take a quick little break to hear a promo from True Crime Exposed. Are you ready to talk about this monster?
I am.
All right. When we laugh... No. Why would I say that? We did not laugh. When we left you last week, Alicia was telling us about the escalation of Robert Hansen's crimes and the incidents that would eventually lead to his downfall. He was buying sex, kidnapping the sex workers, torturing them, and then flying them to secluded land, setting them free and hunting them with his gun as if they were animals. But bodies were turning up, and a task force was created to find out who was responsible for all of this. Aklutna Annie, Celia Beth Van Zanten, Joanna Messina, and Sherry Morrow had been discovered in part 1, and now, just a year later, there were more. On September 2nd, 1983, 17-year-old Paula Ghouling was found by construction workers on a stretch of road not far from where Sherry was found before. Paula had recently moved to Alaska from Hawaii. She was working as a secretary, but had gotten herself a part-time job as a dancer at night to make ends meet. As mentioned last week, it was very common for women in the area to engage in sex work or dancing. It was also common that these women would go missing, and the police didn't take it too seriously because of their high-risk lifestyle, and because of the amount of people who moved in and out of town. People would report someone missing only to later find out that they had saved up money and got out of town to start over somewhere else, or they were out with a client for a weekend getaway, or maybe they just didn't have many people looking out for them and they were never actually reported missing at all.
It was known as the town of strangers during this time period.
Right.
And I don't like that.
I know, it's creepy. It was also, surprisingly, very common to find remains of people in the Alaskan wilderness. Many people would go out hunting or hiking with intentions to come back home and just succumb to the elements. But it was not common to find a partially clothed woman in the Alaskan wilderness, especially in an area of the wilderness that was only accessible by boat or plane, like where Paula was just found. And to really seal the deal, that the finding of both Sherry and Paula and the other two girls was not a coincidence, another sniper shell casing was found buried near Paula's body. A task force was assembled to discuss the likelihood of a serial killer. And when it was confirmed that the shell casings were shot from the same gun, they had to dig even further. The task force, which was nicknamed the Topless Dancer Task Force, by the way,
I didn't know that, and I didn't find that when I was researching, and I kind of love the cheekiness of it, but I also can't tell if it was, like, in poor taste either.
Right.
It's hard to find the line there, but that's interesting.
The task force, nicknamed the Topless Dancer Task Force, began combing through missing persons reports to find similarities. There were 12 missing women in the 3-year period between 1980 and 1983, and these are just the ones that are, had reports done on them. The task force was beginning to realize the severity of the probability of this killer. And sadly, as we know, if the Anchorage police had taken the reports of the creepy man more seriously, then some of these women may not have been victims at all. But the Anchorage police didn't take it seriously, and they didn't even report that creepy man to the task force at the time. Meanwhile, as the task force and the FBI work their serial killer case, the Anchorage Police Department continues on with their daily street calls and continued to not even attempt to communicate possible connections with the task force. Because police suck.
Mm-hmm.
On June 13th, 1983, the police were called at a motel apartment. The desk clerk there made the call after Cindy Paulson, aged 17, came in looking disheveled, wearing no pants, and with her hands handcuffed. The investigators showed up, tried to calm her down, and removed her handcuffs, and after a short time, she started talking. She said that she had picked up a client the night before working as a sex worker. She described him as wiry, scruffy, 6 feet tall, with glasses and a stutter. As soon as she was in his car, he handcuffed her and held a revolver to her head. She knew it wasn't going to go well, but she tried her best to cooperate and give him what he wanted as he drove her to his house. When she arrived at his house, she noticed how almost normal it seemed on the outside, but then inside was much more eerie. Hanging all around the home were hunting trophies, moose heads, antlers, etc. The house was clean, but in the den, there was a chain hanging from the ceiling. She told the police that he had chained her up there, took her clothes off, tortured and raped her for hours before finally taking a break to nap. When he returned, he said he was going to take her to his cabin in the wilderness. He drove her to the airport, where he had his own small passenger plane, and he kept her in the car while he loaded weapons into it. He was distracted, and she knew this was her only chance, so she opened the car door and ran, leaving her shoes inside as evidence. Running down the highway in her underwear, handcuffed and frightened, she flagged down a passing truck, and the driver dropped her off at her motel apartment. And that is when the call was made. So that's Cindy's story of what had happened to her that day.
Poor woman. And, that poor child,
Right, she's 17.
And, running with handcuffs, I've never done it, but it seems impossible. Like, I feel like you need your arms to run properly. Maybe that's just me, but
And also,
I've seen the reenactment of that several times in documentaries about Robert Hansen, and it just always looks just extra heartbreaking and just, ugh.
No shoes, barely any clothes, like...
And Alaska is cold, so.
Right. Like, what do you think... First of all, can you imagine yourself at 17 doing that? Like, what the fuck? But then, can you imagine seeing that?
Yeah.
Would you have stopped? Like, I don't know if I would have. I would have been like, what the fuck is this lady doing? Is she, like, an escaped convict? Probably not,
true
because she's not naked.
Yeah. But, I mean, that would be the deciding factor. The handcuffs would make it a little iffy at first, but I remember we talked about this briefly with another case that I covered.
It was with
her name?
Crime Diner.
Yes, Mary Vincent that we covered.
Yes.
Except she wasn't handcuffed. She just had no arms.
No arms.
So,
and the first vehicle that saw her pass
was too scared. Yeah.
And I would probably be too scared too. Like,
would you stop and pick up Cindy?
I don't know if I would pick up Cindy because the handcuffs would like freak me out. But again, after seeing the no clothes, like, because it's kind of like, did the police just handcuff her and she ran from them, or did someone who wasn't supposed to have handcuffs handcuff her?
Yeah, you're like, am I going to be thrown in jail if I help you?
I think I might slow down and kind of just like gauge like what just happened. And if she explained anything about him at all, then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take you to the police station though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not taking you home. You have handcuffs on. Sorry.
Yeah. I need to protect myself still.
Right. Yeah.
I always wonder with our true crime mindsets, like what we would do in those instances.
It's crazy. Cindy was taken to the hospital to be examined, and on the way, she insisted that they stop by the airport so she could report the plane that she saw earlier. While there, a security guard came over to describe the owner's vehicle and license plate. With that, they had Robert's address and went to pay him a visit. He told investigators that he had been with a friend in the evening working on repairing one of the seats for his plane. He then went to another friend's house and spent the night. The next morning, he went to the airport, installed the seat on his plane, and that was it. He wasn't with any girls. But everything in his house was just like Cindy had described, as in she had definitely been there before. But they found no evidence of, a torturous situation. They did find a number of guns, but that's not surprising, as Robert was a hunter. After verifying his alibi, Robert was released and Cindy was re-interviewed. She picked Robert's photo out of a lineup. She picked Robert's photo out of a lineup, but when asked to do a polygraph, she refused. She could tell that they were beginning to doubt her. The police assumed that maybe Robert had hired her for sex work before, but there was no way he was capable of what she was saying. She must have just been a sex worker mad at a man for not paying her or trying to get more money than she was given, and even if Robert did lie about it, it's not that big of a deal. He just didn't want his wife to find out that he was getting laid somewhere else. He's no big deal. He's a man with needs. The police officers understood.
You couldn't hear my eye roll through the mic.
Yeah. The sex workers and the police, or men in general, didn't have the greatest history in town or in the world.
And I was just going to say, it's the same wherever you go.
Right. And distrust was a problem when it came to these women going missing, as we saw in part 1, with their reports not being taken seriously. Cindy's story wasn't even looked at as possibly being related to the bodies that were found before. Back to the task force case. Profilers were brought in by investigators to get a better idea of who they should be looking for in this serial killing case. They theorized that the killer would be an experienced hunter with low self-esteem, have a history of being rejected by women, and would feel compelled to keep souvenirs of his murders, such as victims' jewelry or even body parts. They also suggested that the assailant might stutter and has probably had an unlucky streak with women. They believed that the person will have engaged in petty crimes, and one of those crimes is likely arson.
Oh, weird. That sounds like exactly somebody.
Yeah, knowing all that we know, like, how fucking amazing is it that profilers are able to find out this information based on looking at a killer's, like, modus operandi and victim profile.
Right.
Like,
it's incredible.
The human brain is a crazy thing, and then people who can read them and understand them is even crazier to me.
I know.
Like, how?
Dream job right there.
I mean,
besides
like, dream knowledge. Like, just how do I learn that?
Yeah.
How do I learn to be a profiler? Holy fuck. I would never, like, I mean, there's millions of unsolved cases. Like, I'm sure there are profiles for a lot of them, and some of them we've even heard the profiles for. But, like, ones that you haven't heard the profile for, is there anything in you that thinks you can set a profile of who that person is?
Yeah.
And be this accurate? Like, fucking no.
It's scary
There's no
accurate.
way I could figure that out.
I love you. Yes. Profilers are unbelievable.
Yes. So anyway, hearing about the profile and having just interviewed Robert Hansen, because if you paid any attention here, it was right around this same time that Paula Ghouling, who I mentioned earlier, was found. So, the Anchorage police finally came to their senses and started to realize that maybe the sex worker they had talked to was telling the truth. There was actually one particular officer, Greg Baker, who took it upon himself to do a deep dive into Hanson's background because it wasn't readily available to them since he had moved there from Iowa. Police departments didn't really talk to each other much back in the 80s. Like, nobody fucking talked to each other, but this guy was like, I need to know what happened in Iowa.
Yeah.
As the task force were weeding through and crossing off multiple possible suspects, Robert Hansen's file was suggested to them. And it was a 100% match down to owning an airplane, which could have been used to get to the remote locations where some bodies were found, including Paula's. Now, with this report from Cindy, the profile matching Robert perfectly, and another body being found in the area that only a plane or boat could get to, the coincidences were just too much to be coincidences.
Can't
no
ignore
coincidences
it
in true crime.
It's true. They're just crimes.
After asking Robert Hansen's former alibi a second time about their whereabouts on the night that Cindy was attacked, and getting him to admit that he lied, police got a warrant for Robert's arrest on October 27th, 1983. He was arrested at his bakery, and he was questioned at the station, a 5-hour process, while another team was searching his home. His house was pretty well kept up, and he didn't leave anything out, but they did discover a few panels in the walls, ceilings, and floorboards that hid small hiding spaces where he kept jewelry belonging to his victims, including Sherry's arrowhead necklace, the rifle that killed Sherry and Paula, and an aviation map that had little X's on it that corresponded with where some bodies of women had already been found. Robert only tried to play it cool for a bit. Once he learned that they had found his hidden trophies, maps, and gun, he immediately entered into a plea deal. He was going to give a full confession of all of the murders, but only be charged with the murders of Joanna Messina, Sherry Morrow, Paula Ghouling, and Aklutna Annie. He would not be given the death penalty, and in exchange, he would help the police locate the other victims that they didn't even know existed before finding his map and learning that the markings meant victims.
Huh.
Robert did admit that he sometimes let women go if he believed that they wouldn't report him to the police. Sadly, most of them did report him to the police, and once again, the police just didn't fucking care.
What are police?
Robert Hansen eventually identified 12 new grave sites to the investigators, 7 of which turned up missing women. They actually took him out to those locations to get a more specific idea of where to dig for each woman, and Robert, being the disgusting pig that he is, was excited and happy to go out in the plane and fly over the places where he left his victims. He happily pointed out all of his work to the investigators.
Ugh.
After getting some information from Robert personally and getting some information from the maps found at his home, many women were found out in the wilderness of south central Alaska, including the 4 girls he pled guilty to. He admitted to killing 10 others. So, again, the 4 girls that he pled guilty to killing was Joanna Messina, Sherry Morrow, Paula Ghouling, and Aklutna Annie. And then he admitted to killing Roxanne Eastland, whose body was never found, Lisa Futrell, who was found near Old Nick Bridge, Andrea Fish Altieri, whose body was never found, Sue Luna, found in the woods after being hunted and shot by Hanson, Robin Pelkey, whose identification was just discovered on October 21st thanks to genealogy. She was formerly known as Horseshoe Harriet. So glad that they were able to identify her.
Yeah.
Delyn Sugar Frey, who was found near the Nick River. Malai Larson, found near the Nick Bridge. Teresa Watson, found near Kenai Peninsula. Angela Fettern, found at Figure 8 Lake. And Tammy Peterson, found near Old Nick Bridge. There were also 3 other women whose bodies were found at locations where Robert Hansen had marked X's on his personal aviation map, but he did not admit to killing these 3 women. They were Celia Beth Van Zanten, who we mentioned from the first episode, Megan Siobhan Emmerich, and Mary Kathleen Phil. The true number of victims that Robert Hansen brutally murdered may never be known. After all was said and done, Robert Hansen was again only charged with the 4 murders of Joanna, Sherry, Paula, and still unidentified Aklutna Annie, though he was... Even though he was only charged with 4 murders, he was given the maximum sentence and was sentenced to life plus 461 years without the possibility of parole. So just in case he survives 1 lifetime or 461 years, there's a whole nother lifetime plus more to come. You know what I mean? Like, holy fuck. He was moved around between a few different prisons in his lifetime, but eventually he did die in 2014 at the age of 75 in Anchorage, Alaska, due to natural causes from lingering health conditions. Sorry to say it, but like snaps all around.
Yeah. I don't think you need to be sorry for saying that. I mean, understandably, he was a husband and a father. I'm putting these in air bunnies because God knows what they were doing or had to make themselves believe while he was out doing all of this. Like, fuck.
Sadly, Aklutna Annie is still unidentified. She was killed sometime between November 1979 and June 1980. She was identified as being short and white, possibly with some Native American heritage. She was either a strawberry blonde or a light brunette, aged between 16 and 25, most likely in her 20s though. She was wearing knee-high reddish-brown high-heeled boots, jeans, a sleeveless knit top, and a brown leather jacket, as well as a metal cuff bracelet with 3 turquoise stones that was possibly handmade, a copper necklace with shell beads and a heart pendant, a Timex metal wristwatch, a shell ring, and gold hoops.
She sounds
If
iconic.
this woman, right? Honestly, it sounds like me. Like, I don't know if that's weird to say, but like,
No,
I
that
feel
style
it
is
all.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I have knee-high boots, high-heel boots. I don't have a sleeveless knit top. I almost bought one recently, but I was like, let me work out first. I definitely have a brown leather jacket. Turquoise stones, fucking yes. Copper necklace with shells, yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I hope she's able to be identified because she sounds amazing.
Right.
And
if this woman sounds familiar to you, you can contact NamUs, the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or the Doe Network. And that is the awful story of the awful man who is Robert Hansen, aka the Butcher Baker. But before we end, you all need to know that there is a movie on Netflix. Everybody has Netflix, right? Does anybody not have Netflix? Message us if you don't have Netflix. I feel like that's the one that everyone has, so we always focus on that one. Yeah. Let me know if you don't have it. The movie is called, is it The Frozen Ground? Just Frozen Ground? On Frozen Ground? Okay. The Frozen Ground is what it is called. And it has John Cusack, who is playing Robert Hansen. It has Nicolas Cage, who plays the investigator, who is the leader of the task force who takes down Robert Hansen. And it has Vanessa Hudgens.
Icon.
Whoa, 90s throwback. Sorry, 90s kid throwback. I guess that's 2000s throwback.
Yeah.
Whatever. Who is playing Cindy Paulson. I watched it over a year ago now. It's been a while, but I remember watching it with my husband. I forced him to watch it with me. I loved it because it's definitely a reenactment movie, right? Like it's not a documentary, but it is based on true events, but it's based on true events in a way that it is so closely perfect. You know what I mean? Like they got it. The
victims' names are all the same.
Right.
Most of the investigators'
It's not
names
loosely
are the same.
based. It is really based.
Yeah. They did
this information is almost identical.
Yeah, they changed Robert Hansen's wife's name. And by the way, Sierra and I were able to find her name, but we purposely left it out because her and her children deserve to have a life outside of this nonsense that he created.
Right. They shouldn't also be
punished for something they didn't do.
Yeah, they're also victims in this case.
Absolutely. So, but it was really accurate. Funny enough, when I was watching it, I was like, is that 50 Cent? Yes, 50 Cent does play a pimp in this movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty accurate. They even have a certain police officer who plays Greg Baker, who's like sneakily trying to give this information to the investigators because in real life, the Anchorage police is like, fuck sex workers. And Greg Baker and the actor who plays him is like, I know you guys think that, but we shouldn't just let people die.
Yeah.
So it's really good. I liked it a lot. My husband did not like it. He doesn't like drama movies, and it was definitely a drama. I think it was labeled as a drama thriller. Yeah. It wasn't scary at all.
No,
I wouldn't call it a thriller. But
the thrilling parts of it, I would say, are more so, the scenes where we see what Robert Hansen actually did versus reading about it.
Right.
Is kind of surreal and a little bit unsettling.
Yeah.
And by a little bit, I mean a lot.
The craziest thing to me is, and I don't remember specifically the movie because it's been a while, but I remember a little bit of it, and I saw pictures of literal Robert Hansen, like not movie, real Robert Hansen's house. like police photos, and they look really similar, like eerily similar to the movie.
They did. I'm always amazed by filmmakers' ability to remake exactly what we see. Like, we even saw that in Shockingly Evil.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's
felt
unbelievable.
like you were in
yeah.
the 70s.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me. So, they did a really good job. The other really thrilling part is near the end where, and this part is likely a dramatization. It might very well be real. The only person that would really know that are the investigators working on the case and Cindy Paulson. But when the task force is, working with Cindy to try and convince her to testify against Robert while also trying to keep her safe. Meanwhile, Robert Hansen has found where she's working as a dancer and is trying to find her and kill her before he can out her. So there's like a hunt for Cindy on both sides. And I'm sweating. I'm like, oh no!
Yeah.
They did a really good job. And I will say Vanessa Hudgens did an incredible job playing Cindy.
I agree.
The other part that wasn't necessarily true to the story was Debbie Peters is the girl that you actually see Robert take out into the woods and kill, and hunt her and take her necklace and stuff like that. She wasn't a real victim of his, which I'm kind of glad that they didn't reenact a real victim.
Right,
I think it would have been pretty tasteless for them to do that. So
I think it's not very unlikely, though, that she was based off of
one of them. Yes,
Sue
absolutely.
Luna, or
I think
Sue Luna was the one that he specifically led investigators to and said, yes, I hunted this one. So like he not only did he admit to killing her, he admitted to hunting Sue. So it was probably based on that victim.
And Sue had 2 kids that were Robert's kids' ages, like very similar. So it's like, you're just an extra monster. You took their mom away. Like, ugh, just awful. But they did a really good job. The movie is really good. I'm not a huge Nicolas Cage fan, if I'm being totally honest. But I liked it. Cage. I liked his character in it. I thought he did it really well. The warmth that he shows to Cindy throughout the movie is really sweet because she is a kid. Like, during one part of the movie, he's also trying to befriend her too because he needs the information in order to take Robert Hansen
needs her to
down.
testify. Yeah,
and he actually takes her into his home and gives her a warm bed, and his wife's obviously not happy about it, but I just thought it was really sweet. And he drops her off at the airport at the end and gives her a hug, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and her testifying in real life is what was, I mean, obviously they found evidence eventually, but in the beginning they brought him in because they were like, you did this to Cindy Paulson. We have Cindy Paulson here to testify, but also we're gonna search your house because we think you're a serial killer. So she is the hero of this story.
Absolutely. And in the movie, it's kind of damning of him because he sees Cindy when he kind of feels the walls closing in on him.
Right.
And he yells, I should have killed you when I had the chance.
Right.
And I was like, nice.
Yeah.
You idiot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know I already said it, but I just want to reiterate, probably a hot take. I fucking hate Nicolas Cage. No offense, Nicolas Cage.
Not a listener of the show.
I hate, possibly. I hate the roles that he plays. There has never been a movie of his that I thought was a good fit for him until I watched this movie.
Right?
I love him in this movie. Yeah.
We were talking about this a little bit before we started the episode, but we were both kind of disturbed by John Cusack playing Robert Hansen.
Oh my God.
It's always hard when you see an actor that you really like and respect their work, and watching them play somebody that awful. We compared it to Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy. It's ugh. It's too on the nose. It's icky.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think in this case it's even worse because we've said this a million times. I mean, this is going back to our very first episode now, but Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy fit for the times. Yeah. So everyone's like, I can't believe people thought Ted Bundy was hot. That's so dumb. In the 70s, Ted Bundy was hot.
Yeah.
Hot in the 70s was different from hot now. Now,
Yes.
Zac Efron is hot, which is why him playing Ted Bundy was the perfect fit.
Yeah.
It made you
On the nose.
like Ted Bundy. I mean, like the person who you were seeing, but then also realize just because you think they're hot doesn't mean they're a good person.
Yeah.
And this one is, I don't know. I feel like John Cusack doesn't normally play a nerd.
No, he doesn't.
So it doesn't fit as him being a nerd, but also it's just like, ew, gross. Why?
He also
No.
never
Should've been someone
demonstrates
else. I don't
the
know.
stutter.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that was like a...
I think in one of the interviews he does, but it's not really a
does he?
stutter.
Oh,
It's
okay.
more of a like loss of words kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Because I know that people that do suffer from speech impediments, it can be flared up when they're stressed. And even if you've gotten past it for your whole life, I know people that stutter when they're really stressed out or in really uncomfortable situations. My husband is one of those people.
Jesse stutters a lot too.
Did
yeah.
he? He
Yeah,
had
he
Kevin
still
had a
does,
speech
all the time.
impediment when he was younger. So, I just thought that was interesting. I actually never noticed that he did that during one of the interviews, but that would make sense because he's under a lot of stress during that interview.
Right.
So it was a really good movie. There's like a couple of little artistic things that they threw in there too. That's my favorite part about movies: symbolism, metaphors, all that stuff that people use as artists to make something come together as like a whole message. And they did a really good job.
I loved it. Honestly, it was like...
And I love Vanessa Hudgens anyway. So
Yeah. If I had to
play,
compare it to any other movie out there, it would be the Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile movie. Like it is
good. They
a
did a good
really
job.
good serial killer remake. You know,
Of what
it feels like a
happened, yeah.
documentary, but it's not because it's a what's the word I'm looking for?
Dramatization.
Right. But it's not one of those ones that feels like a dumb Lifetime movie
Yeah.
where they're overly doing it, you know?
Yeah.
It's really
Exactly.
good.
Yeah, would recommend, guys.
If you can watch it, watch it.
Yes, especially after we've spent 2 episodes talking about Robert Hansen.
Yeah.
It'll just
Especially
give you
after
a little
talking
visual.
about Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens in the same podcast episode.
Oh my god!
because
I
they're
didn't even put
amazing.
2 and 2 together. We're all in
Also,
this
go watch High School
together.
Musical.
This was, I don't want to say fun. This
This was interesting.
something.
This was an
yes.
episode.
This was absolutely.
This was an episode on March 15th. And on this day, in 1985, the first internet domain name was registered. First website ever.
What?
It was called Symbolics.com. It was created by Symbolics Computer Corporation, and it is now owned by just some guy who has done some really cool things with it.
Wow.
So go check it out. Go type in Symbolics, Symbolics, Symbolics.com. He's done like, how many people are looking at this website right now? Like, it's super cool. I love the website.
Ooh.
Also, while you're on the internet, check out our website too, because we recently did an overhaul and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it is
Twisted and
awesome.
Uncorked.com.
Yes. And you can contact us there too to tell us that you don't have Netflix. So there you go.
Exactly. Oh my god, perfect.
Thank you guys so much for listening as always. You know where to find us. We will see you next week for a restart to all of our categories because we always end with
Yay!
a serial killer.
So excited.
We love you guys lots.
Are we ending or
Stay
starting with serial killer?
Yeah, however you want to look at it.
No one knows.
I'm gonna say starting because that's what
that
we
was our
started
first
our
one?
show with. There you go.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
That's what
I
I'm
agree.
gonna call it. We end with the special topics picked by you guys, and we always put out a post for those too. If you guys have any ideas now of a case topic, we just did catfish crimes that you want to hear, hit that little
Send
contact
them
button.
in.
Yeah, it's there for a reason. And in the meantime, stay out of the Alaskan wilderness unless you have any business being there safely. And we'll see you next week for a new episode. And in the meantime, keep it twisted. Thank you for listening to Twisted and Uncorked podcast. Remember to leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you are listening now. It really is the best way to spread the word. You can also check out all of our sources and materials, as well as photos for the episode, on our website at twistedanduncorked.com. And you can follow us on social media at Twisted and Uncorked or Twisted_pod on Twitter. Thank you so much for all of your love and support, and we will see you next Tuesday for a brand new episode. Cheers!